Welcome to the What Does Science Say channel.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've got quite a stack of sources here, articles, research papers, notes, all focused on something you probably encounter, well, maybe even daily, the humble apple.
Right. A real staple.
Exactly. It's in lunchboxes, fruit bowls, everywhere. But, beyond that crunch, that familiar taste, there's this lingering question that seems to pop up quite a bit. What about the seeds?
Mm.
Those little things inside the core, are they just, harmless? Or is there maybe something more going on there?
Indeed. And these sources, they really take us on a fascinating journey. It's more than just a snack. We're looking at ancient history, cultural significance, its global reach today.
Wow.
And then, yes, the chemistry, the surprising stuff hidden right in the core, specifically the science behind those seeds.
Yep.
So our mission today is to deep dive into all this material, pull out what you really need to know about the apple, especially, the facts about those seeds. Okay, sounds good. Before we jump into the controversial bit, the seeds, let's maybe talk about how interesting the apple is just on its own. I mean, it's been around humans forever, basically.
It really has.
And some of the sources point out something cool about the name. Apparently, the word apple comes from an Old English word, apple. And it doesn't just mean this fruit.
No, that's right. It was much broader. The
Mhm.
sources say it basically just meant fruit, like any fruit.
Really?
Yeah, it's fascinating. This multi-purpose word apple was apparently used right up until the 17th century. It covered berries, even some nuts.
No way.
Yeah, they give examples. Dates were finger apples. Bananas were an apple of paradise.
Apple of paradise.
And even cucumbers were your apple.
Earth apples.
Earth apples, that's brilliant.
It really shows you how sort of central the idea of an apple was. It was the blueprint for fruit for a very long time. Speaks to its importance early on. Right. It wasn't just a fruit. It was kind of the fruit. And it wasn't just about food, was it? The sources mention apples popping up all over the place in, like, culture and myths.
Absolutely. All sorts of stories. There's that interesting theory about the forbidden fruit in, the Garden of Eden story.
Oh, yeah.
Some sources suggest the apple got linked to it, partly because of language. The Latin word for apple, malum, with a long A, sounds almost identical to the Latin word for evil, alum, with a short A.
Huh. Just a vowel sound difference.
Just a tiny difference. Could be a coincidence, could be part of why the association stuck in some traditions. It's thought-provoking.
Definitely. And there are other myths, too.
Oh, yeah. The sources bring up the Norse goddess Eon. She had these enchanted apples, right? And the gods needed to eat them to stay young forever.
So the apples literally kept them immortal.
Or at least eternally youthful.
Uh-huh.
If they lost the apples, the gods started to age. So it shows how these fruits were seen as, well, vital, not just for eating, but for life, youth, power itself.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? Why certain plants, certain fruits get this, like, symbolic power across different cultures.
That's a great question the sources touch on. It's not just apples. They mention the Incas worshiping Axamama, a potato goddess.
The potato goddess.
Yeah. And the Mayans revered cacao, chocolate, as the food of the gods. It seems like if a plant was really fundamental to a society's survival or way of life, it often got elevated to this almost sacred status.
Makes sense. And speaking of fundamental importance, that hasn't really gone away, has it? The sources talk about the apple industry today. It's huge.
Colossal is the word. We're talking a massive global thing. The data cited from 2020 puts worldwide production at 86 million tons.
86 million tons? That's hard to even picture.
It's an incredible amount. And to meet all the different tastes and growing conditions and market needs, well, there's been this explosion of varieties.
Right, like cultivars.
Exactly, cultivars. The sources say there are over 7,500 distinct types. We know the famous ones, Granny Smith, Gala, Fuji, but they mention some wild names too, like beefsteak.
Beefsteak apple.
Apparently. And suntan. It's an amazing diversity.
But it's not just about having lots of choices at the supermarket, is it? There's a bigger reason for all these varieties.
That's a really crucial point the sources emphasize. This huge genetic diversity, it's vital for food security.
How so?
Well, apples, like any crop, they face threats. Pests, diseases, things like apple scab, powdery mildew. These can wipe out orchards.
Okay.
So having this massive gene pool, all these different cultivars, it's like a library of traits. Scientists and breeders can dip into it to find genes for resistance, for example, to breed new apples that can withstand new threats.
Ah, I see. So it's like a built-in defense system for the future of Apple.
Precisely. It's a key strategy.
Yeah.
They do similar things with wheat, carrots, potatoes, all the big staple crops. It's ongoing science to keep these foods available.
Okay, so apples are culturally rich, globally massive, genetically diverse, way more complex than I thought.
Absolutely.
And now, the bit everyone asks about, the seeds, the sources all mention this compound in them, amygdalin.
Yes, amygdalin. Amygdalin. It's a natural plant compound, technically a cyanogenic glycoside. It's found inside apple seeds.
It's just apples.
No, not just apple. The sources are clear. It's also in the seeds or pits or kernels of lots of related fruits. Think apricots, pears, peaches, plums, cherries.
Okay, the stone fruits mainly.
Many of them, yes. The Rosaceae family. And the sources specifically mentioned bitter almonds have particularly high levels. For the plant itself, it's basically a chemical defense. Keep things from eating your seeds.
A defense.
Okay.
And that's where the worry comes in, because this amygdalin, it can become toxic.
That's the key. The amygdalin itself, when it's locked safely inside an intact seed, isn't really the issue. The seed code is pretty tough.
Right.
So if you just accidentally swallow a whole seed, it'll probably just, pass right through. Not much gets absorbed.
So swallowing one or two whole is okay then?
That seems to be the consensus in the sources, yes. The risk comes when the seed gets damaged, chewed, crushed, broken open. That physical damage releases the amygdalin, and then, especially in your digestive system, with water and certain enzymes, things start to happen.
Enzymes, like digestive enzymes.
Yes, partly digestive enzymes like beta-glucuronidase mentioned in some sources, but also enzymes that are actually in the seed itself, like beta-glucosidase.
Yeah.
When the seed breaks and mixes with water, these enzymes get to work on the amygdalin.
What do they do?
They basically break it down. It's a chemical reaction, hydrolysis. And one of the end products of that breakdown is hydrogen cyanide.
Hydrogen cyanide, okay. That name definitely rings alarm bells. Cyanide is poison.
It absolutely is,
Yeah.
a potent one. The sources explain how it works. It messes with our cells' ability to use oxygen.
How?
It binds to a critical enzyme, cytochrome cycloxidase, inside the mitochondria, the power plants of our cells. By blocking that, it effectively suffocates the cells from the inside, stops them making energy using oxygen.
That sounds incredibly serious.
It is. It can be rapidly fatal in high enough doses, especially hitting the brain and heart hard, since they need lots of oxygen. It's got a grim history, used as a poison in chemical warfare.
Okay. So if chewing the seeds releases this, does that mean eating an apple core is dangerous? What if you blend an apple, seeds and all, in a smoothie?
Right. That brings us to the absolutely critical question, dose. How much is dangerous?
Yeah.
And the sources give us some numbers here. They're estimates, remember, and can vary. But one source suggests an average apple seed has about, say, 0.49 milligrams of the precursor compounds.
This stuff that becomes cyanide.
Exactly. Another source estimates that 1 gram of apple seeds, which is quite a few seeds, might yield between 0.06 and 0.24 milligrams of actual hydrogen cyanide when processed.
Okay. 0.06 to 0.24 milligrams per gram. What's a toxic dose for a person?
The estimates for a lethal oral dose in humans are generally put somewhere between 0.5 and 3.5 milligrams of cyanide per kilogram of body weight.
Per kilogram. Okay,
Yeah.
so for an average adult, say 70 kilos, 150 pounds or so.
Right, for a 70-kilogram person, that lethal dose range would be roughly 35 milligrams up to maybe 245 milligrams of cyanide. It's quite a range, depends on the individual.
35 milligrams. How many seeds is that? How many chewed seeds?
That's the million-dollar question. And again, it depends on the seeds, how well they're crushed. The sources offer ranges. One estimate suggests around 140 to 200 chewed seeds could potentially be fatal.
140, that's a lot of seeds. That's not just one apple core.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
That's many apples worth of seeds, all thoroughly chewed or crushed. Another source gives an even wider range, maybe 150, up to several thousand crushed seeds needed for serious poisoning.
Thousands.
Potentially. The key takeaway from all the sources is you need to consume a significant quantity of processed seeds chewed, crushed, blended for there to be a real risk of cyanide poisoning. Swallowing a few whole is very unlikely to cause harm.
Okay, that puts it in perspective. You'd really have to go out of your way to eat that many crushed seeds.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's not something likely to happen by accident from just eating apples normally.
One of the sources even had that story, right? About someone who ate apple cores, seeds and all, daily.
Yes, an anecdote about someone doing that since childhood with apparently no ill effects. While that's just one story, it does align with the science showing small amounts, especially if not fully chewed, aren't acutely dangerous. Our bodies can actually detoxify small amounts of cyanide.
We can.
Yes, we have enzymes, like rhodinase, that convert cyanide into a less harmful substance, thiocyanate, which we can then excrete. But that system can be overwhelmed by a large dose.
Ah, okay. But it's not impossible to get poisoned.
No, definitely not impossible if the dose is high enough. The sources do mention documented cases. There was that one involving a 67-year-old woman.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that. She was eating them intentionally.
Yes, as some kind of home remedy. She was consuming several bags of apple seeds weekly for months.
Bags. Wow.
Yeah, and she developed symptoms of cyanide poisoning, confusion, weakness, breathing problems. Thankfully, she got medical treatment and recovered. But it shows that, yes, large intentional consumption can be dangerous.
That case, the intentional eating. It touches on something else controversial in the sources, doesn't it? This idea about amygdalin or laetrile maybe being a cancer treatment.
Yes, that's a really complex and highly contentious topic that comes up. Laetrile, sometimes called vitamin B17, though it's not actually a vitamin.
Right.
There was this theory, popular for a while, suggesting amygdalin could selectively kill cancer cells.
Selectively? How is that supposed to work?
The theory, as presented in the sources discussing it, was based on enzymes. The claim was that healthy cells have lots of an enzyme called rhodinase, which quickly detoxifies any cyanide released.
Okay, the enzyme we just talked about.
Exactly. But the theory claimed that cancer cells lack rhodinase and instead have high levels of the enzyme beta-glucosidase, which breaks down amygdalin.
Ah, so the idea was cyanide gets released only in the cancer cells, killing them, while healthy cells are protected.
That was the proposed mechanism, yes.
Yeah.
A sort of targeted poison delivery.
The sources also seem pretty clear that this isn't accepted science.
Overwhelmingly, yes. The mainstream medical and scientific consensus reported in the sources is that laetrile doesn't work against cancer and is dangerous. They point to major studies, like one with 175 cancer patients, that found no benefit.
No benefit at all.
No significant anti-cancer effects. And worse, the sources highlight reports of serious cyanide poisoning in people using laetrile. That's why the FDA banned it in the U.S. back in the 80s, lack of efficacy and safety concerns.
So the enzyme theory just didn't pan out.
Apparently not. The critiques in the sources argue the enzyme distribution isn't that simple, and fundamentally, cyanide harms all cells if the dose is high enough, not just cancerous ones. Some sources use strong language, calling it quackery.
And they mentioned people actually died from this.
Sadly, yes. Some sources link the promotion of laetrile to deaths, where people consumed large amounts of apricot pits or cherry pits, trying to self-treat cancer based on these unproven claims. It's a stark reminder, really, about the dangers of health misinformation, which the sources clearly outline from multiple perspectives. We're just relaying what's in the material here, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. A cautionary tale. And connecting this back, this idea of natural toxins isn't unique to apple seeds, right? The sources mention other common foods.
Exactly. It's quite common in the plant world. It's often about defense. The sources list things like lectins in raw kidney beans, why you have to cook them thoroughly.
Right, I've heard about that.
Or oxalic acid in rhubarb leaves, that's why we only eat the stalks. Nutmeg has myristicin, too much can be toxic. Even raw cashews and mango skins have urushiol, the same irritant as poison ivy.
Wow, so it's really about knowing your food, the preparation, and the dose.
Precisely. It's not that these plants are bad, it's just understanding their chemistry, being informed.
Okay, so let's bring this all together for you, the listener. You're holding an apple, thinking about a snack. What's the bottom line here from all this?
The bottom line is, enjoy the apple. The flesh, the skin, they're great for you, full of fiber, vitamins, antioxidants, all good stuff.
And the seeds. Do I need to panic if I accidentally swallow one?
No, definitely no panic necessary. The sources consistently indicate that accidentally swallowing a few whole seeds is generally not a concern. The coating protects them. The amount of amygdalin is tiny relative to a toxic dose, especially for an adult.
But maybe don't, grind them up for your morning smoothie on purpose.
Exactly. Avoid intentionally eating large amounts, especially if they're chewed or crushed. While the toxic dose is high, it's not impossible to reach if someone were to consume, say, cupfuls of ground seeds regularly. And remember, this applies to related pits like apricot and cherry, too, which can be even higher in amygdalin.
So enjoy the apple, don't sweat swallowing a seed or two, but leave the seeds themselves out of your diet.
That's a very reasonable summary based on the science presented in these sources. When you think about the whole story, the apple's journey from this ancient fruit and mythical symbol through to being this global industry, It's genetic diversity being key to our future food, and then this hidden complex chemistry in the seeds. It really makes you pause.
Mm.
It makes you think about all the unseen science and history tucked away in the everyday foods we eat, the layers of knowledge, and sometimes, yeah, these surprising controversies just waiting in a simple bite.
That really was a fascinating deep dive, peeling back the layers on something so familiar.
It was.
Huh.
From, earth apples and goddesses to genetic resilience and cyanide chemistry. There's always more beneath the surface, isn't there?
Thank you for being with us until the end of this video. Please be sure to subscribe to the What Does Science Say channel and give us energy with your likes and comments.
Share your comments with us and send the video to your loved ones so that others can also use it.